Hello everyone, today is one of the most important topics in grade 8 math, Pythagorean Theorem. Pythagoras was a Greek mathematician almost 2,500 years ago, so that means he came up with this theorem in that time. But just as usual, before we start, let me provide you the last homework solutions. Okay, let's jump right onto the question. There's a right triangle, and you're to find this side's length. By the way, this side of the right triangle is called hypotenuse. Just mentioning it for those students who didn't know until now. And I'm gonna show you how to find that length. You square the two sides, and if you add them, it's gonna be the square of this length. So 3 squared, that's 9. 4 squared, that should be 16. So if you add them, it should be 25, right? So what should be that length? 25 is the squared number, so the real length should be 5. Okay, let's try another one. What is the length of this hypotenuse? These two sides are 12 and 5. And again, we have to find the hypotenuse, which is the longest side in this right triangle. Hypotenuse is always the longest side, okay? So again, we have to square the two numbers from the two other sides, right? 5 squared plus 12 squared. And that should be the square of this side. So 5 squared is 25, 12 squared is 144, and that should be 169. Do you know which number squared is 169? It's 13. Check that. Okay, one more example. We again have to find this length. So just simply add these two numbers, but after squaring them, right? So 2 squared plus 2 squared should be this question mark squared, which is 4 plus 4, and that should be 8, right? 8 is the squared number of this question mark, right? So the answer should actually be square root of 8, right? Some of you may also know how to simplify this number. It could also be written as 2 root 2. So, this is Pythagorean Theorem. If you add the squared values of these two short sides, you'll get the squared value of this longest side, which is the hypotenuse of the right triangle. And again, this theorem can only be applied on the right triangles, okay? If the triangle is not a right triangle, you cannot use Pythagorean theorem. Remember that. So let's do some actual practice problems. Question 1. Find this length, A. According to the Pythagorean theorem, we have to square these two numbers and then add them together, right? So a squared plus 6 squared should be 10 squared. Does that make sense? That means a squared plus 36 is 100. And if I move 36 to the other side, it should become minus, right? 100 minus 36 should be 64. So if a squared is 64, what is a? 8. Are we all good? Okay, next question. We have to find this length, B. Okay, this right triangle is a bit tilted, but that's fine. we're still squaring these two numbers and adding them together. And that should give square root of 25, which is the hypotenuse. So if I write it down, 15 squared plus b squared should be 25 squared. Why didn't I write b first this time? It doesn't matter, does it? So 15 squared, that should be 225. You can check it. Plus b squared should be 25 squared, which is 625. And again, if we move 225 to the other side, it should be minus, right? And you get that b squared should equal to 400. So what does that mean? What is b then? The length b should be 20. Let's keep solving these quickly. Now we have to find this length, which I called it x. You know, we can always name with other alphabets. So this is fine. What should we do? Of course, we have to square these two numbers and then add them together. And that should be squared value of this number, right? So 5 squared plus 3 squared should be x squared, which means 25 plus 9 should equal to x squared, which means x squared is 34. So what should x be? Square root of 34. I know it's an ugly number, but we can't always have a nice looking number, right? Question 4. We again have to find this x, but remember, this x is not the hypotenuse, right? So don't get fooled. We have to square this x and then square this root 3 and then add them together, and that should be this squared, right? So do not get fooled. So x squared plus root 3 squared should be the longest one, which is 2 squared. So x squared is just x squared. If we square the root 3, it just becomes 3, right? And 2 squared is 4, obviously. Moving 3 to the other side, x squared should be equal to 1. So what is x? X is 1. Alright, question 5. You can try it by yourself. You can pause the video for a moment and find for A. Okay, I'll assume you guys have just tried it now. So there's A here, and according to the Pythagorean Theorem, we had this, right? But is this A this A? Is it the same A from the Pythagorean Theorem? No. Do not get fooled once again. In this question, A is the hypotenuse, right? So this equation is wrong. We have to write it like this. 9 squared plus 12 squared should equal to A squared. So I just wanted to warn you that A is not always on this side. Be careful. So again, 9 squared is 81, 12 squared is 144. If we add them, you should get 225. So if A squared is 225, what should be A? If you try to guess, or if you have used calculator, you should be getting A equals to 15. Okay, this is another question. You can again pause the video for a moment and try it by yourself. Alright, so we have to again square these two values and then add them, and we should be getting 26 squared, right? So here, see what I wrote. I'm just thinking it ahead. If we are adding these two squared numbers and we're getting 26 squared, that means we could have 26 squared and then minus one of these two, right? So I subtracted 10 squared from 26 squared such that I can get h squared as a remaining. You'll see that h is equal to 24. So I just kinda skipped the steps, but it was still the Pythagorean theorem. This is gonna be our last practice problem. Oh wow, we have two right triangles here stick to each other. We have to find the length A. If we wanna know what A is, we need to know the other two sides of the triangle, right? But it seems we only know this side, which is 3. What is the length of this vertical one, which is the hypotenuse of this triangle? Some of you may have figured it. We can find this vertical length from this left triangle. We're given the hypotenuse, root 34, so let's go reverse. This hypotenuse squared minus this squared, we should be getting this squared, right? So root 34 squared minus 3 squared, which is 34 minus 9, we get 25. So what does that mean? This vertical length should be 5. Now that we know this length, we should go again, reverse. 5 squared minus 3 squared, which is 25 minus 9. It should equal to 16. And this is a squared. So what is a? A should be 4. So I hope this video helped you understand Pythagorean theorem. I'll just give you 2 questions here as homework, and I'll provide you the answers next time. See you in the next video.